We all know that video games nowadays can be made by anyone should they have the skills to do so. But a lot of people think, well, that only means to a certain extent, right? Wrong. Recently, we tried a game called Bright Memory by a single developer named Zhancheng Zeng, apologies if mispronouncing in any way, who is a 3D artist from China. This game is really impressive. It's an FPS, but brings in a lot of action game elements, and after playing it for a while, I have to say, it's unique. I will probably say that word quite a few times during the course of this video because it's really the best word to describe what this is, especially given that it was made by a single person. It's at least more unique than a significant number of games that go out on the AAA market now, and you'd be hard-pressed not to confuse it for something made by a AAA studio, at very least at first glance. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, let's talk about Bright Memory. So if you can imagine a kind of Devil May Cry shooter, that's basically what you might call this. Although, if I were to try to explain the controls to you, it would sound overly complicated. However, I found it to be quite intuitive as I was learning it. It's typical WASD shooter stuff with the mouse and keyboard, adding in things like shift and other keys that trigger various defensive or offensive moves/weapons. The main character has a sword. You use that sword extensively, and it's kind of interesting. I like how it works. You press E to use it initially, and you can perform a couple of moves with it by rolling the mouse wheel up and down. There's also a kind of psychokinetic push. I've seen it referred to as a force push by a number of people in the reviews of the game, which by the way are extremely positive if you go in looking at them on Steam. And another fun feature is the light whip. Like, you can use it to traverse, you can use it to pull enemies your way, and it's overall a really cool feature that reminded me a little bit of Dishonored. Now, I'm talking about the mechanics of the battle system up front, primarily because it sets the stage for what kind of game it is, a very combat-focused action shooter. Now, there are obviously some bits of evidence that this was made by a single person. Levels are pretty linear. I didn't really have a lot of trouble getting through them as far as what I'm supposed to do. I didn't have to do any exploration. There are puzzles, but they're nothing that's gonna set the world on fire or really be particularly memorable. They kind of exist so that there's something other than just combat, it seems like to me. I generally just went in the direction that it seemed like I should be facing, and that basically got me to the end of the level after combat, which has you dodging all over the place, which by the way is way more intuitive than it sounds. You press shift along with one of the directional buttons on the keyboard and you dodge in that direction. It took a little bit of learning, but it felt intuitive very quickly for me, which is interesting on account it was made, again, by an artist. Zhang, the creator of the game, doesn't even actually know how to program. This game was made entirely using Unreal Engine's Blueprints system, which is a visual scripting system that instead of using all of the normal things you would associate programming with, programming/scripting languages, long, indecipherable lists of commands, text calls, stuff that a normal person doesn't understand. Instead, connecting nodes with various commands and instructions, from playable characters to HUD elements. If you go into the documentation on the Unreal Engine's website, it's really impressive. You can accomplish pretty much anything the Unreal Engine can do through the Blueprint system, and understanding that this is a game that was made entirely using this system makes it all the more, really kind of almost unbelievable. I called the game unique because I haven't really played anything exactly like it, and if you had told me it was made using visual scripting and modules that a 3D artist put together, I would probably react as if you were possibly lying to me. However, the artist in question made a tech demo, submitted it to Epic Games, who gave him an Unreal developer grant. Obviously, putting your money where your mouth is displays a degree of confidence, and seeing where this project is at this point should absolutely do just that. Now, generally, I'm not impressed really with the story or anything. I'm not even entirely sure what's going on. I told you that the levels are fairly linear. You might know that for me, that's definitely not a detrimental thing. I like games that are linear, but when I say that, I mean it's very linear. more linear than I would probably expect out of a AAA studio, but again, it's made by a single person, but I couldn't stop playing it. It's really fun. Like, he did a really good job coming up with this, I mean, in theory, just different thing. Clearly, he thought, wow, it would be cool if you had a game that did this, this, and this, and then figured out a way to use this goofy graph system that Unreal created to make games without any programming experience, and wow, the result's great. I haven't talked about the graphics because, well, I think that that's probably the majority of what makes the game impressive outside of its actually really fluid and fun combat system. But when you look at this game, at least from a cursory glance, it really looks like a AAA game. Now, as soon as I saw a person talking, and it didn't look really a lot like a person talking, the lip sync is kind of silly, and sometimes other animations are a little bit stiff. However, keeping that out of your mind, everything is textured really well. We've got cool weather effects. We've got a great HUD. In all actuality, the presentation of this game feels top-notch. If EA put it out, you would only have some minor questions as to why EA didn't have enough money to do better hair, I guess. I don't know. Honestly, when you find out that a single person did this, like, any real problem you have with it becomes a weird nitpick. But between the rain and the environmental effects and all this, it's really impressive. And the developer spends time updating whenever there's new features added to the Unreal Engine. And that keeps the game looking better and better continuously. Like, there's deep learning super sampling. The game has amazing RTX implementation. Like, the game doesn't even really need it. But once you start adding in all these RTX reflections, it's just really cool looking. Now, given there's only one developer working on this game, it's understandable that there's not more, like, in the way of multiplayer. The developer said specifically, multiplayer modes are not my strength. I may need to hire some programmers to assist in that, but there will be no multiplayer mode in Bright Memory Infinite, the final release version of Bright Memory. That makes sense. Although, as a co-op game, it could possibly work. Pretty much any given time, it really feels like it's designed for a single player, and that's it. That is not a criticism, it is just a simple fact. I think when you consider that a single person is working on it, that it doesn't have more options in that respect is not. It's not really something you can be critical about when the game is actually as good as this is and unique as it is and looks this good. I mean, from the first moments, you're kind of like, wow, this isn't cheap. You're in a high-tech facility, you get transported to this weird mystical island with strange animals, sort of zombie people and guardians, and suddenly you're grappling between platforms and using powers on enemies that you're not really sure how to make sense of. Like, one of the first things you see is kind of a lion tiger, but definitely not a liger, more of like a monster-y type thing. But that's kind of just getting off track. What we have here is perhaps the best evidence that you don't need a massive team to make something cool. Yes, it's going to be of a different scale and type than a massive team project, but honestly, I kind of wish there were more linear games, which means maybe it would be nice if we saw more one-person games or small team games. Like, I'm excited to see the final product of this. I will buy it. I bought the early access because I was impressed. We didn't make this as a promotion for the game or anything. It's just cool. We like cool stuff here. And understanding that it is, in a way, big promotion for NVIDIA, who has given the developer a grant and has been able to showcase its technology and how flexible it is by showing what one person can do. To be fair, it's a bit of a commercial for them, but just putting that out of your mind, it's hard not to look at this and just consider it this massive accomplishment for a single person. He's been working on it a couple of years, but I mean, in theory, when you see something like this, you wouldn't assume that a single person could do it in a decade. I not only can't wait to play the full game, but I'm also excited to see just what people do when they understand that the Unreal Engine is so flexible and so workable for somebody with no prior knowledge as to what to do here. Are we going to see a new golden age of smaller scale games that look AAA? I don't know, but that's my hope. I want that, but what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and do not forget to enable all notifications. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.